So the next craft I'm going to show you that is going to help our butterflies and is also quite fun to make is a different kind of butterfly feeder. So instead of it being a plate that you'll be putting items on, this is going to have the food kind of dripping from it. So it's going to have that sugared water inside it. So the things that I said that you would need for this craft was some coloured card, was some scissors, some sticky tape or some glue, also some string, some cotton wool, a mixture of sugar and water, which I'll get to later, and a sharp pencil. I think that might have been it. I did say as well that you need either a cardboard cup, like a paper cup, or if you haven't got one of those, a plastic cup. A plastic cup is fine too, it's just a little bit trickier to use. You can even use a yogurt pot, which is what I'm going to be using today to demonstrate it. Okay, so to attract our butterflies, we want to make these feeders nice and colourful to start with, the same way as we did with our plates. Now, it's a bit tricky when you've got plastic, because we obviously can't really colour in using felt pens and stuff on the plastic. It doesn't really work, it tends to slide off. So what you can do for the plastic is you can use some coloured paper or card and cut a thin strip, and you can wrap it around instead. Okay, so first thing we want to do is do the decorating part. So if you have a cardboard or a paper cup, then you can use coloured pencils, maybe paints, felt tips and things to decorate it and make it nice and colourful. Because I'm working with a plastic thing here today, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to sellotape this down so that it stays put nicely on the pot for me. And then that's going to make it a nice bright blue colour. And if I want to later on, I suppose I could also add some pictures directly onto the cardboard or the paper that I'm wrapping around it. Okay, so the way this is going to be different to our other feeder is that this is going to be having that sugar syrup inside. So instead of it being fruit that the butterflies will drink from and stretch their tongues into to get a taste of the sugar, it's going to be actual sugar water. And this is really quite beneficial for our butterflies. It's exactly what they need to keep them going, very similar to the nectar that they will drink naturally from plants anyway. So it's a really nice way of helping them get a little bit of extra energy on a hot day. Okay, so I'm going to add a bit more tape to keep this down. Okay, so I've wrapped this around, I've taped it down, probably going to trim the end off it a little bit as well, just so I can get to the bottom. Okay. So you need to be able to see the bottom of the cup because that's where the butterflies are going to feed from. So we don't want a massive load of cardboard kind of getting in the way there. Okay, being nice and careful with our scissors. So now that I've got that sorted, I'm going to put a little bit more tape just on the bottom, making sure I don't cover the whole thing. Okay, so I'm just going to put some tape to secure it to the bottom. Just like that. So I've now got a nice brightly coloured yogurt pot instead of a plain one. Okay, so you've decorated your pot in whatever way you'd like to do, okay, with the initial part. What we need to do now is create the holes that we're going to need to both put the food inside and to also hang up our pot. So I've done this in advance. It's a little bit tricky with a plastic one. Is you're going to make a nice sized hole in the bottom. Okay, so it's about just a bit bigger than my finger, decent sized hole in the bottom. Okay, you can make this larger if you've got plenty of cotton wool, because that's where this is going to be stuffed. And you're also going to need some holes on the sides. Okay, so I've got one hole that's just here on this side and in the same place on the opposite side. Now if you've used cardboard, you might need to make a hole in the cardboard so that you can get to the hole. So one of mine I think is just about above the cardboard, so that's not so much of a problem, but the other one is a little bit above. Now I'm going to carefully use the blade of the scissors to create that hole here to make sure that it pokes the whole way through. Be nice and careful if you're doing this, okay? Maybe ask for some help if you're a little bit unsure. So we should have two holes on opposite sides. So I've got one hole just here okay, and then my other hole just over here. All right, this is going to be important because this is how we're going to hang up our butterfly feeders. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, similar to the last time, we are going to decorate it, and that's what this card is going to be used for. We're going to put some lovely petals on, so you can cut those petal shapes out of the card. Maybe you have some left over from your paper plate butterfly feeder that we made. So what you can do is either sellotape these on or glue these on again. Okay, now because if you put them flat on, they'll just kind of stick out straight. It might be an idea, where you've glued it, glue it on just the very edge like this, and then perhaps bend it outwards so that it rays outwards like a nice petal rather than being straight across like this. Okay, so I'm going to take my petal, bend it a little bit. I'm going to put a bit of glue on the bottom here. Feel free to use sellotape if that seems to work better for you. So I'm going to put a bit of glue onto this part that I've bent here. Okay, fantastic. And then I'm going to stick that on to the edge of my feeder, just like this. Okay, lovely. And I'm going to keep doing this around my feeder until it's covered in lovely petals. So what you should have now is your feeder with lots of lovely petals all around the bottom. So the way I've attached them is they're folded underneath here. I've used a bit of sticky tape to give it a bit of extra support and bent them backwards so that underneath it's a nice pretty flower. So when this hangs like this, not only are these bright colours going to attract our butterflies, but they're also a landing spot for them, so they can kind of settle on them and crawl underneath to where our sugary water is coming out from. So what we're going to do next is think about how we're going to be able to hang this feeder up. So you're going to need that string, and you're going to maybe want, again, about an arm's length worth of string, something like this. And you're going to, excuse me, you're going to snip the string just here, nice and carefully. And you're then going to take your string, thread it through one of the holes on the one side and pull it through, and thread it through the other hole on the other side. Okay, again, a little bit fiddly, but this is important because it means we can then hang our butterfly feeder up in our garden the same way as we did with our plate that we made previously. Now you want to make sure that your hole is wide enough that you can get to your feeder, and as you can get to your string. Sorry, a mistake that I have made here. So I'm just going to poke my pencil through to make that a little bit wider so I can get my string through. Just going to poke that through nice and carefully. There we go. Just bringing that through there. There we go. So once you've got your string through, again, it's going to be what we use to hang our butterfly feeder up. So we want to make a nice knot in the top so that that piece of string doesn't slide through and our feeder doesn't drop on the floor. So now we've got our nice knot. Our feeder has its two holes, kind of keeping it upright, and it should hang something like this. So we're nearly there. Our feeder is almost ready to welcome its new guests. What we need to do now is actually put the food together. So you should have some cotton wool. So what you can do, you can use cotton wool buds as well. That's absolutely fine. The cotton wool pads, if you want to kind of tear them up a little bit and make them into a ball, that'd be great. So I'm going to use some of this cotton wool here, but I've got like a larger sheet of it. I'm just going to snip some of this off because I don't need all of that. Okay. And I'm going to kind of gather it into a little ball. The reason we're using cotton wool is that it's nice and absorbent. It's going to hold that sugar water nicely for us. It's not just going to be dripping everywhere. All right. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to push it through the underside. Okay, so through the hole here, I'm going to push my cotton wool through. Okay, so that there's some hanging out just like this, and there's some on the inside, just like that. What we're going to do now is add some food to it and put it outside ready for our butterflies. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put together the mixture that's going to be for our butterfly feeder. So in a pot here, I've got about 2 teaspoons of sugar, just normal granulated sugar is fine, or anything that you've got available that's like sugary, whether that's brown sugar or whether it's caster sugar, that's fine too. What I'm going to do now is take some plain cold water. I'm going to add some water to my sugar, and I'm going to give it a stir. This is going to make a nice kind of syrupy mixture for them. You want it to be nice and liquidy. It needs to be nice and kind of thin so that they can extract it. You don't want it to be like a thick, gloopy liquid. So make sure you've got plenty of water in there so it ends up being just like a sugary liquid instead. You want to give it a nice stir until it dissolves pretty well. Okay. And what's going to happen once you've got this sugary liquid, if I don't spill it all everywhere first, is that you're going to pour this on top of your cotton wool, and that's going to get absorbed, and then that's going to be like a sponge kind of filled with this nice sugary liquid. You can actually use sponge instead. So if you didn't have any cotton wool around the house, you could always use a bit of kitchen sponge or bathroom sponge instead. And stuff that into that little hole at the bottom of the feeder, because that would hold the liquid nicely for you just as well. Now my sugar is nearly all dissolved just here, so I'm going to give it a little bit more of a stir so that it's all nicely mixed in, ready for my butterflies to feed on. Okay, that looks about ready. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my feeder and I'm going to drip just some liquid onto the cotton wool. So I'm going to pop it inside just like this. Okay, so I'm going to pour it inside and it should soak right away into the cotton wool. So my cotton wool is already looking a bit damp as it's taking in this sugary liquid, and we should start to see it feeding through to the other side soon. Okay, so I'm going to make sure it's nice and wet, nice and damp from my liquid. Don't want to pour it all on straight away. I'm going to put it in a teaspoon at a time, just until I can see it starting to come through on the other side. So I can start to see it coming through now. Put a little bit more on. So I think maybe I've put about 4 or 5 teaspoons on, depending how much cotton wool you've got. Keep feeding that through. Here we are, that's an extra 2, so maybe about 6. There we go, and I can see that it's starting to get damp on the other side now with this sugary liquid. Now all that's left to do is for me to find a decent spot for me to hang this feeder up. And the same as before, there's no real right or wrong way for you to hang up your feeder. You can pop it wherever you like across the garden, as long as you know it's somewhere that gets plenty of sunlight. Perhaps there are flowers there already. So I've decided to put mine just hanging on this post here. So it's there with its petals, and it's got the cotton wool hanging underneath as well. Okay, make sure that you send in some photos if you see any butterflies or bees or any other insects enjoying your sugar syrup on your feeder, and enjoy making one yourselves.